Hi everyone. As you can see, this video is going to be about embedding media on your free WordPress blogs, which I assume that most of you will be using. This doesn't apply for um, paid for WordPress blogs that are self-hosted, such as keysnews.net and robinbrown.co.uk. So when you've bought your own domain and you host it, which I don't think many of you, if any of you have done, then you can embed pretty much anything on your site. If you have a free WordPress blog, an example might be robinbrown.wordpress.com, and that's probably, if you look at it, that's probably a kind of style that represents how your blog works. It's probably something.wordpress.com if you're using WordPress. Then a lot of things won't embed. I want to talk you through what will and won't, using some examples of mine. So I have a free WordPress blog which I use for teaching purposes, and I'm going to go through some things that do and don't work and some workarounds too. So the reason I'm doing this is things have changed very recently, as far as I can tell, in that something that used to embed on free WordPress blogs doesn't anymore. It's Infogram. And this is something that you're probably familiar with from workshops and so on and so forth. It's graphs and charts and numbers and things like that. Here's one I made earlier. So what I would have done in the past is gone to share, and then quite often WordPress will support just putting a link like this one in here. So I might have gone back to my WordPress blog and just put that in. I'm on the text editor. This is really important to note. It's a text editor. Always input code on the text editor, and then don't go to visual to see if it works. Instead, go to preview changes. If you toggle between the two, you might mess up the code, and if you input code on the visual editor, you might muck it up as well, basically. So always be thinking text editor. You can see it where my cursor is here. That's where you want to be putting in code. Because sometimes what happens is there might just be a sort of random bit of code at the end of it. That stops it being a piece of code that'll turn into something nice and shiny that works, and it'll just turn it into a random string of numbers and letters and things like that. So always really important to look at your text editor, input code on there, and then make sure there's space between all the code you put in. Don't be doing this, that won't work. Now, because Infogram has changed, none of this will now work. So what I used to say to people is, because I can never really remember which was the best one, 2 or 3 of these used to work, and now I'm afraid none of them work. So what a lot of you are finding, let's go to preview changes, is that something like this will happen. Essentially, it doesn't work. And you can go through all of these, and normally iframes are good for WordPress. So I might have tried to do this as well. What happens? Well, nothing much. It's usually worth refreshing a preview to see if it works, and you can see that there's something here, and if I hit that, it'll link to it. So it sort of works, but essentially now that's it for Infogram. WordPress have decided that they don't like it anymore because of the way that it uses JavaScript, I think. So what I would do now is I'd probably do something like this. I'd get the link to it, and we know that one will work fine, and I'd copy that, and then I think what I would do is just download it as an image. No, it's not going to let me download it by the look of it, is it? It's going to let me download it? Doesn't look like it. No, upgrade to download it says. So what I might do instead, if it works, is like screenshot the top of it or something like that. So I'm in a Mac now. If I press Command Shift and 4, then I can screenshot that bit there. You might have heard that kind of camera snap sound. And then what I do is I go to Add Media, Upload Files, blah de blah de blah. That will have gone to my desktop. Here's all my pictures of cats from previous lessons. And then what I can do is I can link to this. So I can go to custom URL, and down here I can put in the URL that I know will take it to Infogram. So you don't really need to change any of this unless you're really hot on your SEO and you really want to start faffing about with that. Think about your alignment, how was it going to look best. Custom URL will allow you to put the link in. What's this going to do? Of course, it's going to link straight to the infographic. So this is just an image, but if I click on the image, it takes me to the original. And I think that's the best workaround that you can use at the moment for Infogram. It won't embed unless you've paid for a WordPress blog, so don't bother trying. So Infogram, for whatever reason, not working on free WordPress blogs anymore. But don't panic, just let me see it in situ on Infogram and provide a nice link to it. And I think what I did there was probably the best way of doing it. So don't write or click here to view or something like that. That always looks a bit clunky to me. Give me a nice image so I can see what it looks like, and then I can click through to it. Okay, let's discard with Infogram. Let's get rid of that. Piktochart is something else I recommend you use. Guess what? We can't embed this either. So again, what I suggest is let's download it. I think it lets us download it on here. So let's have a medium quality, and a PNG is fine. Don't need PDF. Download as blocks. And we don't, well, you could maybe do that if you want to. Piktochart, don't forget, works in blocks like this. So here's one block. We scroll down. There's another block, and I can keep adding more and more and more blocks. Don't forget, I can put in images and things like that. What works particularly nicely on Piktochart is this shapes and icons thing. So if I type in cricket, which is my favourite sport, then don't sort of give me numbers. Give me numbers represented by cricket balls or cricket bats or stuff like that. Let's have a look at money. So if we need to represent money, that's quite a common thing in infographics. Numbers, all about numbers, don't forget. That would work quite well. People are another thing that is quite often represented. I don't know what's going on there, but quite often represented in Piktochart. So we could use these to represent thousands of people or tens of thousands of people or whatever it is. You can see we've got some nurses by the look of it, or police people. So anyway, that's Piktochart. So let's say that I want to embed this. I'm going to download the image again, and then that's downloading as we speak by the look of it. Let's assume that that's happened. Don't know why that's taking so long. Okay, here we go. Opening up preview, and there it is. Let's pretend that's really nice and attractive, and I've filled it full of high value information and things like that. Then I'd be going to share, and let's just go back to that. Anyone can view the sharing link. Really important you do that, otherwise it won't work. I think it might default to only I can view the sharing link. Copy that, and then it should be the same situation. So I'm going to add media, and that's probably going into my downloads, I suspect. Yeah, there it is. And again, what do I do? All the way down here to custom URL. Full size is going to be far too big for my WordPress blog, so that looks about right to me. Insert into post. Let's check that works. We'll work in a live environment. You never quite know. Okay, here it is. So this is the best way, I think, that you can now use infographics on your WordPress blogs. We still get, let's imagine there's some interactivity here. As I click on various bar charts, they light up or they tell me something different there. That's the benefit of infographics. They change as you interact with them. That's why it's important to see a live version of this rather than just an image. So, two things we can do there. I just want to talk you through some other things quickly. Let's get rid of Piktochart. We know we've dealt with that. Here's Google Maps. So it's My Maps, remember. To use this, you've got to go to My Maps. Not Google Maps, it won't work. It's a whole different interface. Let's get out of that and go onto that. So here's all of my maps that I've created in the past, some of which I've used for holidays I've been on to kind of, give me a kind of useful guide as to where we're going and how long it'll take to get there and what roads and so on and so forth. Sometimes as just journalism tools like this one when I went on a car trip. So here's the value to all of this: images or, well, media of some sort and text. Otherwise, it's not really worth bothering with. Tell me something different about this, these things I'm clicking on. Okay, so when I'm finished, I need to export this. That's not going to work, so don't copy the URL. Instead, up here, you get 3 buttons, 3 dots if you like. That always means a drop down, whether it's vertical or horizontal. If you can see that, there's a drop down behind that. And I go down to embed on my site. And it gives me an iframe like that that'll just work perfectly. So let's copy that. And let's just check what happens. Okay, nothing happens. So now I'm going to refresh the preview. It's a funny little quirk of WordPress, but it usually works in that way. So if you don't see it first time, don't panic. Don't fire off emails to me. Oh, everything's, nothing's working. Woe is me. FML, all that kind of thing. Just refresh the embed and then it should work. And again, the benefit of embedding this rather than having an image or something crap like that, I can interact with it. That's the point. Interactivity. Where this catches people out is if I haven't set this to be publicly viewable, I won't be able to see it, and it'll say you need to change the privacy on here before you can do anything about it. I don't know how to. I think you've got to go to this one here. So you can see on mine, it says public on the web. Anyone on the internet can find and view. Let's just change that to off, which I think is the default. So now we'll come out of that. If I go to the 3 drop downs, I go to embed on my site. Oh look, guess what? This map is not public. Okay, so we know now I've got to go to share, and there's this middle option. That won't work either. It's got to be on, public on the web. Save that. Done. And then I will be able to get my embed code. There we go, embed code. If you want, you can hack this code. So let's go back to it. Look at it on here. You'll see there's width 640 by 480. If I wanted to, for some reason, if I just wanted it small, I could say, well, you know what, let's take that down to 300. We'll take that down to, I don't know, 220, something like that. That looks roughly proportional. Again, preview doesn't work. Refresh the preview, it works. So there's Google Maps. Next up, what have we got? SoundCloud. So here's my SoundCloud account, some podcasts about cars I've done in the past. This should be fairly simple, and I think if I click on that, then I've got you into the habit of just grabbing URLs. I think this will work. Let's check it out. Yeah, works a treat. I might get a bit more functionality if I find the embed code. Is it under there? No, it's under share, I think. And I can go to embed, and then look, I get a little bit more functionality with what I can do in terms of the colors of it. How big is it going to be? I can enable autoplay. I can't do the rest of it, I don't think. You get different looking players if you want. So a little bit more functionality there if you want to do that. And then copying this iframe and bringing that across, it should do exactly the same thing. Let's just see if I can replicate the fact that it won't work sometimes on visual. Let's see. So I've got 3 players there. Let's see if they all work. Okay, so none of them are working right there. Let's refresh the preview, which we know how to do now. 1, 2, 3, they all work. So sometimes you can put code in on your visual editor and it'll be fine. If there's a problem with it, then go to your text editor. Now, this will be interesting. Let's preview those changes again, because what I was hoping would happen, I've been able to replicate this fault, this error. 1, 2, remember we put 3 bits of code in, bastard, it's still doing that. The reason why I didn't think that would work is, here's what this code should look like. You get this little arrow and then iframe space source, and then down here it should look exactly the same, but you can see that WordPress has changed it from being a little arrow to a bit of code like that. So that will sometimes, in fact often, it'll stop it working. And then at the end you can see, instead of iframe arrow, I've got iframe plus some just random code there. At some point that'll prevent that from working. So you can see in there, in the preview, that's not working in the visual editor. At some point when I came to publish that, something like that, it would stop working. So when your embeds don't work, go from your text editor to your visual editor, check everything's looking hunky-dory. Can't replicate that, unfortunately, at the moment, but you get the idea with that. Okay, YouTube. Here's what YouTube is recommending to me today. You can probably see some things that I like music-wise and television-wise. Let's see if I can embed this scene from Donnie Darko. As long as it's not set to private or something, there should be no reason why. I just grabbed the URL. Again, I'm going to go back to text editor, get rid of all that stuff, paste that in, preview changes, and what should happen is that it will default to the maximum width across there. It's responsive, so it'll make it as big as your WordPress blog is happy to go to. If I go to share, then I do get some other options, so I can start it at a different play point, and if I hit embed, I can do that, but I can also get some of this. So if I don't want other suggested videos, I can get rid of that. If I don't want play controls and so on and so forth. Don't know what enable enhanced privacy mode is. Probably means that it doesn't track what you're watching if someone's watching it. So if I copy that and go back to here, you can see I've got this iframe stuff again. Again, I can hack that. So I can take that down to 300 and that down to 200, should I want to. Let's have a look. Let's see if that works. Okay, that works. So it's smaller because I hacked the code and I made it smaller. I can make it bigger again if I want. Let's take that to 600 by 400. See what happens. So being able to hack code like this is quite useful if it doesn't look exactly how you want, but there's limited functionality. Anyway, there's that. What I could also do on YouTube is I can embed playlists if I want to. If I've created a playlist, I'll let you figure that out for yourselves. Okay, Twitter. Here's one I did earlier. This is a review that I did recently. So again, I just grab the URL. Let's see if it works. Always worth seeing if something works. Not using the visual editor, which I hate, but by previewing it and seeing what it's going to look like on there. We have less functionality with Twitter. We can't really do a lot with it. What we can do is, if we come out of that, if we drop that down, we go to embed tweet, we get a little bit more functionality. We can take the media out, so it's going to stop playing a video if there's one in there, I think, but fundamentally that's about the size of it. Let's take it back to here. Can I hack anything in here? By the look of it, I can't. Sometimes you can look at code and you can see that it's going to move it to the left or the right, or we can look at the size of it, but two ways that we can embed tweets, basically. If it doesn't work, refresh it. If it still doesn't work, maybe check to see that the tweet you're trying to embed isn't from an account that's private. That sometimes happens. Okay, let's get rid of that. I can embed tweet moments as well. This is worth doing sometimes. If you want to collect a bunch of tweets that represent something that's happened, here's one I made earlier. I think I can probably just do it using this URL again. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. So quite a nice way of telling a story of reactions to things. If you want to find 10 different tweets reacting to some big event, a Twitter moment is a nice way of doing that, and you can build your own very easily. So whenever you're on Twitter, let's say if you go to home and then somewhere on here, I'm going to be able to find an example. There it is, moments up there. There'll be a big button up here, create new moment, and there you go. You just add tweets that you've liked, or tweets by account, or just tweet search. Let's search for the idiot in chief, Donald Trump. Bound to be lots about him. And then I can start adding these tweets to my moment. Like that. Build that, you can embed that. That's a nice way of telling a story of reactions to things. Okay, TapeWrite. TapeWrite does not embed in a free WordPress blog, so don't waste your time. What I would do is just link to it. It works perfectly fine linking to it. Again, you could do the thing where we screenshot this and make the image a clickable link that takes me through to here. That's a nice way of doing it. Or you can just make some words clickable. So how do I get a link to this? Well, I'm fairly sure that'd work, but I'm not wholly sure. So what I've been doing is looking for this button, which always means share. We know we can't embed it. We could if we paid for a WordPress blog, but I'm guessing you guys don't. Link to this card, let's see. Please note, currently we only support image card previews on social media. That's not good for us. So we just want to link to the tape. And there it is. So let's say interview with, I think that guy was called Alan Jones, manager of St George's Hall. And because I'm on the text editor, then I'm going to do it slightly differently to you. I'm going to hard code the link into there. Let's check that works. Let's refresh that. Okay, that's not working. Okay, I did that wrong. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Interview with Alan Jones. Does it take me to the TapeWrite? Yes. Brilliant. Problem solved. If you're wondering what the hell I did there, I just hard coded a link. Something that you can do as you get used to things a little bit more. If I go back to the visual editor, how do I do this? Highlight that text. Look for my chain icon. Paste. There we go. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all of that because we're going to move along to whatever's next. TapeWrite, thank you very much. Okay, Facebook. So, what are we looking for on Facebook? Here's Dan McLaughlin talking about his bus journey. What are we looking for? We're looking for a timestamp. Every single thing on Facebook has a timestamp. So there's Ollie making his debut for Lancs Cricket Club. There's a timestamp. Let's go down to something that happened a couple of days ago. Jack at Alton Park. Let's try and find something a bit further ago. Jack at the races. Timestamp. So it might say an hour ago. It might say 9:10 p.m. or something. It might say 5th of May. It all does the same thing. What it does is it generates a unique URL. Now, some of you probably know what's going to happen next. Let's say I want to paste that in. Preview changes. What happens? It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's personal. It's a personal post by someone, Jack in this case. You can't embed personal Facebook posts. What you can do is embed posts from pages. So you might have your own pages, or you might have one, or you might be able to find one for the BBC or the Guardian or a celebrity, whoever's page it is. Here's Keys News in my shortcuts. So I will be able to embed something from Keys News if this comes up. So let's scroll down and let's see if we can find a post. Here's one published by Bethan, timestamp here. So all I'm going to do is grab that, get rid of that, paste it into there, preview changes. There we go. So fairly straightforward. There's probably other ways of doing it. Look, my 3 buttons, that always means a drop down. Let's have a look at that. Embed. There might be some advanced settings, so I might be able to change things like, okay, so it's giving me some examples of hard coding down here that I can do, which is quite useful, to be fair. So if you want to get your hands dirty with changing some of the width or things like that to your post, then you can hit that one. I'm just going to go back. Oh look, there's a good example. You can make it bigger or smaller. Include full post. I wonder what that means. Let's uncheck that. So that's presumably like if there's any comments on it, something along those lines. When you've done all of that, hit get code. That's going to generate some more code for us, I'm guessing. So that's some quite nice functionality that Facebook has introduced. I can't be bothered waiting for that. Let's just go back. There's the iframe. This should do exactly the same thing as the URL. Let's have a look. There's the first one. Second one hasn't worked. Let's refresh that to see if that works. Still doesn't work. You know, sometimes things don't work when they're supposed to. That's life when you're working online. There's so many kind of issues that could happen here. Is it something wrong with Facebook? Is it something wrong with the code I got? Is it something wrong with WordPress today? Is it the browser? Is it the theme on the WordPress blog? Not always easy to know. I might just be doing something wrong here. I'm not sure. But there you go. As long as you can do it, as long as it works, I don't think it really matters that much how you do it. Let's just try it again, see if we can get that to work. No, not having it. Refresh it. Always worth refreshing the preview. Still not having it. Don't know why that is, but we know that if we just grab the URL, it's going to embed. So there you go. Bob's your uncle. If you're ever worried that you see this happening on newspapers a lot, if you're ever worried that it might disappear, then I suppose what you could do is, you could screenshot something, so you've got that backup if it comes to it. A lot of newspapers do that. I think when they're worried that a celebrity who's gone on a Twitter rant or posted something inappropriate is going to delete their tweet or Instagram post or Facebook post. So that's an option. Anyway, that's Facebook for you. Right, let's come down at the end. We've done maps. Instagram. The only one left that I can think of. So here's my garden where I was working from this morning. What I'm looking for is 3 dots, again, that indicate a drop down, or something like an arrow, which usually indicates sharing. There isn't one on here because my Instagram account is private. So I can't embed any of this. So even though I can see it, I can't embed it. It won't work. So let's do my favorite search for cats. Now, I'm guessing that because I can see all of these, that they're automatically not private. They're automatically public. So what I always do, again, is I just grab the URL. Let's see if that works. You're never quite sure. There we go. So Instagram is increasingly a nice way to find... okay, let's stop that. A nice way to find videos, images, that if we can't find any ourselves. Let's just go back to Instagram. I wonder if there are more options in terms of if we get an embed code. Look, these are 3 dots. We know that's a drop down. Hit embed, include caption. So we get a tiny little bit more functionality. I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't work, but let's see if it does or not. Oh, look at all that hideous code. Horrible. Let's preview it, see if it works. There's the first one, using just the URL. The second one, that works too. So you've got options, essentially. I've noticed there's that tiny little unnecessary bit of spare code at the end of it. So use whatever looks best, but I'll tell you what, if this was the back end of my blog, I wouldn't want all that crap. I'd just be having that, essentially. I guess what you can do is if you choose to have this and you're confident in your coding, you can start hacking bits of code. If you want to, you can play about with that if you're bored with life. But, why bother? Life's too short as far as I'm concerned. So there you go. How can you find out what you can embed from? Well, if you maybe just go to this URL, codex.wordpress.org/embeds, it's going to tell you what you can embed using just the URL. You've noticed that Infogram isn't on here. It used to be. Something has changed. For some reason, WordPress has decided that they're not happy with that code anymore. Maybe they think it's vulnerable to hacking or something like that. So there you go. You can check what's going to work and what isn't. But you know what your workarounds are now, and that's really important. How to work around if it doesn't embed. There's always something that you can do. Right, last thing, just to reiterate all of this, some points on this. Know what should and shouldn't embed. None of these things, which I might have taught you, are going to work now on a free WordPress blog. Some of them have in the past, but they don't anymore. But it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Just link out to it and make it look attractive. Don't just throw a URL in there. So make an image clickable or make some words clickable. There's that URL. If you want to make a note of that, where you can see what will embed and won't. Make sure you have the correct code. So you might just have the wrong code if something is not working. Try the URL, try embed codes. It comes down to this, trial and error. Try it until it works. That's what I do. Always input text using a text editor. This is a really common thing. I sort of replicated what happens there. So if something's not working and you think it should be working, I've done everything right, well, look at it on the text editor and try and put that code in again. Always refresh the preview. Often, I find now, a preview doesn't work first time around. That might be a WordPress thing, it might be a theme thing, don't know, but that's something that I've found to be the case more often than not. Finally, if you can't get it to work, find a workaround. Use your nous and your skills and your talents and find a nice way of bringing that to life. The clickable image is a really good one if it won't work. So don't just throw in a horrible raw URL that looks like a load of code. Just give me a link. Give me a link so I can see it online. Okay, I hope that was helpful.